Hayes woke up at 6 in the morning like always. The alarm on his wall beeped 3 times, and he reached over to turn it off. Sunlight came through the window of his small bedroom on Earth Station Meridian. He could see the vast empty space beyond the colony walls, dark and full of stars. He was 42 years old. His wife had died 5 years ago. His daughter Riley was 16 now. Every morning was the same. Wake up, shower, make coffee, check that Riley was awake for school, then head to the education center where he taught basic science and history to children from human colonies across this sector of space. Pulled on his gray work clothes and walked down the corridor of his home. The station was old, built 40 years ago when humans first arrived at this edge of explored space. The walls hummed with the sound of machinery. Everything here was functional, simple, and built to last. He found Riley in the kitchen. She had dark hair like her mother and was eating a protein bar for breakfast. She was already dressed in her school uniform. "Morning, Dad," she said without looking up from her food. "Morning," replied. He poured himself coffee from the maker on the counter. The coffee tasted bitter and old, but it was hot and it helped him wake up. They did not talk much at breakfast. After her mother died, Riley had become quieter. She still did well in school. She was smart and kind, but she carried something heavy inside her that could not completely reach. At 8 in the morning, walked through the station toward the education center. The corridors were busy with workers and traders. Earth Station had about 3,000 people living here. Most worked in trade, mining, or station maintenance. The station was neutral ground, which meant merchants from different alien species could do business without fear of attack. The Syndicate had no official presence here, but had heard rumors that they had interests in the station anyway. The education center was a simple building with classrooms, a library, and a small laboratory. Taught in room 7. His first class had 22 students from ages 8 to 10. They were from human colonies spread across 3 different planetary systems. Some had been born on spaceships. Some had never seen a real planet with grass and water. The morning went normal. Taught them about planetary atmospheres and why some planets could support human life and others could not. A boy named asked good questions. A girl named Sophie drew pictures instead of taking notes, but she always understood the lessons. At noon, the alarm started. First, there was a warning sound through the station's communication system. Then an emergency message came through loud and clear. "All personnel, this is station command. Unidentified vessel entering docking zone. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Stopped his lesson. The students looked scared. He told them to stay in the classroom and locked the door. He walked to the station's viewing window and looked up through the glass. A large ship was coming down fast. It was not a human ship. The design was wrong for that. It looked damaged. Smoke came from its rear engines. As watched, the ship struck the edge of the station and crashed hard into the ground outside the colony wall. Alarms kept sounding, heard running footsteps in the corridors. He went back to his classroom and told the students that everyone would have to go to the central shelter. The children were scared but quiet, felt afraid too, but he did not show it. 2 hours later, after the children were safe in the shelter with other adults, heard a new announcement. "Attention all personnel. A trading vessel has crashed outside the colony. Survivors have been confirmed. Station security is now restricting movement in the lower sections. No unauthorized personnel are allowed near the crash site. Further updates will follow." Sat in the shelter with hundreds of other colonists. Riley came to find him. She was scared and stayed close to his side, put his arm around her. "What happened?" she asked. "I don't know yet," he said, "but we're safe here inside the station." That was what he said, but he was already hearing something else. People around them were talking. A woman near them said she had heard soldiers talking outside the shelter, not regular station security. These sounded military, and they did not speak human languages. They spoke the language of the Syndicate. felt something shift inside him. Something that had been comfortable and predictable was about to break apart. The afternoon passed slowly. Then, at around 6 in the evening, more soldiers came to the shelter. They were not humans. They were tall with dark blue skin and black armor. One of them stepped forward and made an announcement in accented human language. The Syndicate government is now taking control of the investigation into this crash. All survivors from the crashed vessel must be identified and turned over to Syndicate authority. The captain of that vessel is a criminal. Anyone hiding this criminal will face execution. No one moved. No one spoke. The soldiers waited for a response. The soldier stepped forward again. "Station administrator, come forward now." A man named Robert Cole stepped forward from the crowd. He was the administrator of Earth Station, a middle-aged man who usually made safe choices. He looked nervous. "We will cooperate," Robert said. "We have no criminals here. Everyone on this station follows the law." The soldier commander nodded once. "Then you will allow us to search every building, every home, every structure in this colony. We will find the captain, and you will help us do this." Robert agreed. He had no choice. The soldiers had weapons. There were only 6 of them in the shelter, but they all looked ready to shoot anyone who resisted. His heart was beating fast. He held Riley. He did not know why he was so afraid. He did not know anything about this crash or this captain, but something inside him knew that he was about to make a choice that could not be undone. The soldiers left the shelter. Robert told everyone they could go home, but that soldiers would be searching houses throughout the night. He told people to cooperate and no one would be hurt. And Riley walked back through the corridors toward home. The station felt different now. The simple, safe place had known was gone. Something dangerous had arrived. When they got home, locked the door. He made Riley dinner. They ate in silence. Then, just after dark, he heard a loud noise outside his home. Soldiers. They were searching every house on the residential block. His hands shook as he checked that all the doors and windows were locked. His mind was moving fast, thinking about what he would do if soldiers came to his home. He had no weapons. He had no way to fight them. Then he heard the knock. The soldiers were at his door. Stood up, he was very afraid, but he was also thinking about what the soldier had said. The captain was a criminal, but was it true, or was it just what the Syndicate wanted everyone to believe? He decided he would answer the door. He decided he would let them search his home. He decided he would lie to them if he needed to. He did not know then that this decision would change everything. He opened the door. The 2 soldiers who stood at its door were tall and dangerous looking. Their armor was black and fitted tight to their blue skin. They carried weapons that looked like nothing had ever seen before. One soldier looked at him with eyes that seemed empty and cold. "Is anyone else in this home?" the soldier asked. "Just me and my daughter," said. His voice sounded steady, even though his hands were not. "We will search," the soldier said. It was not a question. Moved aside and let them in. The soldiers walked through his home, checking every room. They opened closets. They looked under beds. They checked the storage areas. Riley watched from the kitchen, her arms crossed tight against her chest. One soldier stopped near the wall between Riley's bedroom and the maintenance section behind it. The wall had a metal panel that looked like all the other panels in the station. The soldier touched it but did not open it. He looked at the other soldier, then back at. "What is behind this?" the soldier asked. His heart jumped. "Maintenance tunnels," he said. "All the older sections of the station have them. They are for workers to reach the pipes and wiring." The soldier tried to open the panel. It was locked. "Open it," he commanded. "I don't have the key," said. "Only station maintenance workers have access." The soldier stared at him for a long moment. Felt like the soldier was trying to see inside his mind. Then the soldier turned away and finished searching the rest of the home. After 10 minutes, they left. "We will return," the soldier said at the door. If we find the captain and you are lying to us, you and your daughter will both die." When they left, Riley came to. She was shaking. "Dad, what was that about?" she asked. Did not answer right away. He was thinking. He was thinking about the maintenance tunnels that ran behind the walls. He was thinking about the metal panel the soldiers had noticed. He was thinking about the fact that he had just lied to soldiers from the most dangerous criminal organization in the galaxy. "Riley, go to your room," he said. "Lock the door. I need to think about something." "Dad, tell me what's happening," Riley said. "Someone is in trouble," said. "Someone who might be innocent, and I am trying to decide if I should help them." Riley looked at her father for a long moment. Then she said, "You're going to help them, aren't you? Because that's what you do. You help people." Did not answer, but Riley was right. 2 hours later, after Riley had gone to bed, moved the furniture in his home, he found the panel the soldiers had been looking at. He had lived in this home for 8 years and had never opened it. The lock was old, but he was able to break it. Inside was a tunnel that went down and to the side, toward the lower sections of the station. Crawled through the tunnel. The air was cold and smelled like metal and dust. Lights that had been dark for years slowly came on as he moved through the tunnel, powered by the old station systems. He crawled for what felt like a long time. Then he saw something. In a side chamber there was someone sitting in the darkness. It was not human. It had skin that was light green and smooth like water. It had 6 arms and most of them were wrapped around a wound on its body. Blood ran down its skin. "Help me," the creature said in perfect human language. "I am hurt. I am hiding. Please help me." Moved closer. "Are you the captain?" he asked. "Yes," the alien said. "My name is. I am the captain of the trading vessel, and I am carrying information that will get me killed if the Syndicate finds it." Helped back to his home. The alien was heavy and in pain, but managed to get him into the maintenance tunnel and then into his home. He brought to the space behind Riley's room. It was small and dark, but it would hide him. Cleans wound. The alien's blood was purple, but he seemed to heal quickly. By morning, the wound was already closing. "Why did you help me?" asked. "Humans are not known for protecting strangers." "Some of us are," said. "Some of us think that if a person is in danger and we can help, we should." "That is not logical," said. "No," agreed, "it is not." Over the next 3 days, learned about and why the Syndicate wanted him dead. Was a trader who had discovered that the Syndicate was selling illegal weapons. These weapons were bioweapons. They killed by destroying a person's ability to think and move. Had seen entire settlements destroyed by these weapons. He had seen children die screaming. Had collected evidence. He had documents, communications, and records that proved the Syndicate was behind the weapons trade. He was trying to take this evidence to the Galactic Council, the organization that controlled laws across the known galaxy. "If I can show them the evidence, they will stop the Syndicate," said. "Or at least they will try. But if the Syndicate finds me first, they will kill me and destroy the evidence. And the killing will continue." "How many people have been killed by these weapons?" asked. "Thousands," said. "On 7 different worlds. Most of them were civilians, many were children." Sat with this information. He thought about the students he taught every day. He thought about Sophie, who drew pictures instead of taking notes. He thought about who asked good questions. He thought about all the children on Earth Station who had parents from different colonies, who had lost relatives to violence and sickness and accidents in space. "We will get you to the Galactic Council," said. On the 4th day, his friend came to his home, worked in station maintenance, told him everything. He told him about the bioweapons. He told him about the thousands of people who had been killed. Listened, then he said, "This is dangerous. If we get caught, we will die." "I know," said. "But if we don't do this," said, "more people will die." "Yes," said. Nodded, "Then we do it. Tell me what you need." Over the next week, and gathered people who wanted to help. Not many, Most people were too afraid, but there were some people who had lost loved ones to the Syndicate. There was a woman named Carol whose daughter had been killed in a settlement attack 3 years ago. There was an old man named George whose entire family had been destroyed on one of the 7 worlds where the bioweapons had been used. These people wanted to help because they understood that doing nothing meant the violence would never stop. Commander arrived on Earth Station on the 8th day after the crash. He was tall and muscular, even for a Syndicate soldier. He had scars on his blue skin that told stories of violence. He was smart and careful and very good at finding people who wanted to hide. The first thing did was arrest Robert Cole, the station administrator. He said Robert was helping the captain escape. Robert tried to say he was innocent but did not believe him. Heard later that Robert had been executed. Then came to his home, but this time he was alone. "Tell me about the captain," said. He did not have his weapon drawn. He did not seem angry. He seemed like a man who was simply doing his job. "I don't know anything about the captain," said. "Everyone lies," said. "But the good liars tell the truth most of the time, so I am going to believe that you know nothing, for now." Walked through his home again. He looked at everything carefully. He stopped at the wall panel behind Riley's room again. "The maintenance workers have not been able to open this panel in days," said. "It is locked from inside. Someone fixed the lock. Someone who knew they needed to hide something." Said nothing. "But I could be wrong," continued. "And I am a fair man, so I will not search this panel today, but I will remember it, and I will come back." After left, knew they had to move fast. They had perhaps 2 days before would return with equipment to open the panel. And his team had a plan. It was dangerous and would probably fail. But it was all they had. The central market of Earth Station was always busy. Traders from a dozen different alien species bought and sold goods, information, and services. There were stalls with food that grew on distant planets, machines that could repair almost anything, and weapons that could destroy buildings. The market smelled like strange spices and metal and the breath of creatures that were not human. Had arranged to be a cargo coordinator for the day. It was not hard to arrange. People at the market did not ask many questions if you paid them enough credit. Wore a gray uniform that made him look like any other station worker. The plan was simple in the way that very dangerous things were simple. Would be placed in a sealed cargo container labeled as food supplies. The container would be loaded onto a transport cart, would drive the cart through the market and toward the docking area where merchant ships waited. Along the way, there would be 3 Syndicate checkpoints. At each checkpoint, would claim that the cargo was routine food delivery for a merchant ship. The Syndicate soldiers would look at the papers had prepared, and then they would let him through. The problem was that this plan depended on the Syndicate soldiers not thinking too hard about what they were seeing. It depended on them believing that a human teacher could work for them without drawing attention. It depended on luck. Had no luck, but he had something else. He had evidence, and he had the knowledge that millions of people across the galaxy were dying because no one had stopped the Syndicate yet. Helped get into the container. The alien fit inside carefully, curled up to take less space. There was enough air for several hours. Carried the data core with the evidence sealed in a small case against his body. "If this does not work," said before the container was sealed, "tell the Galactic Council that I tried. Tell them that the people tried to stop this violence." "It will work," said, though he did not believe it. The container was sealed. Loaded it onto the transport cart. He took a deep breath and began driving toward the market. The cart moved slowly through the corridors of Earth Station. Workers passed by, paying no attention to or his cargo. Most people at the station were focused on their own work and their own survival. They did not want to notice things that might draw the attention of the Syndicate. The first checkpoint was at the entrance to the market district. 2 soldiers stood guard. They were younger than expected, maybe only 20 years old in the way their species counted age. One of them stepped forward and held up his hand. "Stop, state your business," the soldier said. "Stop the cart." He tried to make his voice sound bored and tired, like someone who had done this job 1,000 times before. "Food delivery," said, "going to the merchant docks." "Documents," the soldier commanded. Handed over the papers he had prepared. They were forged, but they were good forgeries. Cousin worked in the station administrative office and had helped create them. The soldier looked at the papers. He looked at the cargo container. He looked at. "Open it," the soldier said. His heart jumped into his chest. This was not supposed to happen, not at the first checkpoint. "It is sealed," said. "The contents will spoil if I open it." "Open it," the soldier said again. Reached for the container, but then appeared from the side corridor. He was moving fast and making noise, running like someone in an emergency. Called out, "We need you at the administrative building. The commander is asking for all cargo coordinators. There has been a problem with supply records." The soldiers turned to look at. The younger one seemed confused about what was happening. "I have to go," said. "The commander is waiting." "Commander?" the older soldier asked. "Yes," said, knowing that could verify nothing about this. The soldier nodded. "Go, but we will verify this with the commander." Did not wait to hear more. He drove the cart forward into the market. Behind him, he could hear explaining something to the soldiers. He did not know if it would buy him enough time. The cart moved through the market. Merchants shouted offers from their stalls. A creature with too many eyes tried to sell something. The smell of alien spices made his eyes water. The second checkpoint came into view. This one had 3 soldiers, not 2. One of them was looking at a communication device, probably checking on fake story about the administrative building. Considered turning around. He considered driving the cart into an empty corridor and telling the plan had failed. But he thought about the thousands of people who had died from the bioweapons. He thought about the children. He drove toward the checkpoint. A soldier held up his hand, stopped. "Documents," the soldier said before could even speak. Handed them over. The soldier studied them. He looked at the cargo container, then he looked at. "What is your name?" the soldier asked. "David Price," said, using the false name from his documents. "David Price, the Syndicate has been looking for a captain from a crashed ship. If you are helping that captain, you will die. You will die slowly, and we will make sure you understand everything you caused." Said nothing. He kept his face still and empty. "But I can tell you are not lying," the soldier said. "You are afraid, but you are not the kind of person who would help an alien criminal." The soldier handed back the documents. "Go, but remember what I said." Drove forward. His hands were shaking on the controls. The third checkpoint was the last one before the docking area. This checkpoint had 4 soldiers, and they all looked alert and ready to search anything. Knew this checkpoint would be harder. As he approached, one of the soldiers stepped forward. But before the soldier could speak, there was an alarm from the far side of the market. A cargo container had fallen and broken open. Alien merchandise spilled across the ground. Traders began shouting. The soldiers at the checkpoint turned to look. "Go," one of the soldiers said to, waving him through. "The docks are through there. Do not stop." Drove the cart through the checkpoint and toward the docking area. His legs felt weak. His hands felt numb, but he kept driving. At the merchant docks, a ship was waiting. It was not a human ship. It belonged to a named Roz, a merchant who had agreed to help for a high payment of credits. The payment came from money that's group had collected from people who wanted to stop the Syndicate. Pulled the cart up to the ship's loading ramp. Workers moved forward to take the container. They did not ask questions. They loaded it aboard the ship without inspection. Then Roz appeared at the ramp. They had 4 legs and a body that seemed too long for any normal space, but the merchant was known across the galaxy as someone who could be trusted. "The captain is secure," Roz said. We depart in 10 minutes. If Commander discovers this, he will arrest you." "I know," said. "The captain will reach the Galactic Council," Roz said. "The evidence will be presented. This will matter. You should know that." Nodded. He drove the empty cart back through the market toward the central district. He was trying to think about what to do next when he heard the alarm again. This time it was not from a cargo container. It was the station-wide emergency alarm. The speaker crackled with Commander's voice. "Lock down all docks. Lock down all corridors. A criminal has escaped this station. Find the captain. Find anyone who helped the captain, and bring them to me alive." Heard the sounds of running feet. He heard weapons being powered. He knew he had maybe 5 minutes before soldiers would track the cargo container to the docks and discover it was empty. He had succeeded. The captain was gone. The evidence was gone. But now Hayes was a hunted man, ran through the corridors of Earth Station. Behind him he could hear soldiers searching. Alarms continued to sound. Every person he passed looked afraid. He had to get to Riley. He had to get his daughter to safety. After that, he did not know what he would do. He did not have a plan for being hunted by the Syndicate. But Riley was first. Took a side corridor that led toward the residential section. He moved fast but tried not to run. Running would draw attention. He passed other workers and tried to look like he belonged there. At his home, he found Riley already packed. She had a small bag with clothes and her most important things. "Told me what happened," Riley said. "He said I should be ready to leave." "You are very smart," said. He held his daughter for a moment. She was tall now, almost as tall as he was, but she was still his little girl inside. "Where are we going?" Riley asked. "The maintenance tunnels," said, "is preparing safe houses in the lower sections. We are going to hide there." "For how long?" Riley asked. "Until the captain reaches the Galactic Council," said. "Until the evidence is presented. Until the Syndicate realizes that killing us will not help them anymore." They moved through the maintenance panel and into the tunnels. Was waiting for them. His cousin George was there too. George worked in station engineering and knew every tunnel and passage in the old station. "We have about an hour before things to search the maintenance areas," George said. "After that, we move again. We have 3 safe houses set up in different sectors." They moved through the darkness. Lights came on as they walked, powered by the station's old systems. They passed areas that had not been used in decades. They saw the bones of the station, the machinery that kept it alive. Heard soldiers searching the residential section above them. He heard gunfire. He heard screams. "Someone up there did not cooperate," George said quietly. "The Syndicate kills slowly. They start with the people who know nothing to scare everyone else." They moved deeper into the tunnels. Hours passed. They stayed in the first safe house, which was actually an old equipment storage area near the station's center. Could hear the sounds of the station continuing above them. He could hear the ordinary sounds of life, but everything was wrong now. Had brought a communication device. He was monitoring the news from across the galaxy. Ship had jumped to faster-than-light speed. The captain was safe, at least for now. But the Syndicate was not finished. Commander sent a message through the station's communication system. "I am giving you one final warning," said, and his voice was cold and without emotion. "If the people responsible for helping the captain do not surrender within 12 hours, I will destroy this entire station. I will kill every person here. I will make sure that no evidence of Earth Station survives." The message ended. Felt the weight of what he had done. 3,000 people lived on Earth Station. 3,000 people were going to die if he did not surrender. "I have to turn myself in," said. "No," Riley said immediately. "No, Dad, you cannot do that." "If I surrender, he might let the station live," said. "He will not," George said. He was sitting against the metal wall, looking tired. "I know the Syndicate type. They are afraid now because the evidence is loose in the galaxy. They cannot afford to leave witnesses. If you surrender, they will kill you, and then they will still destroy the station. They have no choice. There is always a choice, said. Not for them, George said. The Syndicate is not human. They do not think like we do. They only understand power and fear, and right now they are both. Riley came close to her father. You taught me that sometimes you have to fight for what is right, she said. You taught me that surrendering just means more people die. You taught me that. Looked at his daughter. She was right. Surrender would not save anyone. It would only make the killing easier for the Syndicate. Then we wait, said. We wait for the Galactic Council to receive the evidence. We wait for them to act. But was not a patient man. As the hours passed, heard more gunfire. He heard more screams. He heard that was executing people one by one to show that he was serious. Then something changed. Received a message on his communication device. He read it, and his face went pale. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session, said. Has presented the evidence about the bioweapons. The evidence is real. The evidence is. His heart jumped. There is more, continued. The Ali Collective and the Federation have called for immediate military action against the Syndicate. They are sending warships to protect Earth Station. For a moment, could not believe what he was hearing. He had risked everything on the hope that the evidence would matter. He had hoped that the Galactic Council would act, but hope and reality were not always the same thing. But was not finished. The Syndicate's operations across 3 sectors are being investigated. 20 other worlds are finding evidence of their crimes. Multiple species are joining the investigation. The Syndicate is falling apart. Sat down. He felt something let go inside him, something that had been tight for days. Then there was a new message through the station's communication system. Commander has received new orders from Syndicate leadership, the message said. All Syndicate forces are to withdraw from Earth Station immediately. The Galactic Council has assumed authority over the station. Any attempt to cause further harm will result in military response. 20 minutes later, heard the sounds of the Syndicate ships preparing to leave. He heard the engines fire. He heard the vibration as the ships pushed away from Earth Station. Checked his communication device. They are leaving, he said. They are really leaving. But George was still careful. We stay here for another hour, he said. We make sure they are really gone. Then we go up and see what remains of the station. An hour later, they climbed through the maintenance tunnels and back into the residential section. The station was damaged. There were blast marks on the walls. There were bodies that soldiers had left behind. There was blood. But the station was still here. It was still alive, and most of the people on it had survived. Found Carol, the woman who had lost her daughter to the Syndicate's weapons. She was standing in the market district, looking at the damage. Walked to her. They are gone, said. Carol looked at him. How many people do you think are dead right now, in the galaxy, dying from the bioweapons that should have been discovered years ago? Did not have an answer. Thousands, Carol said. But you sent a message today. You sent a message to the Galactic Council. You sent a message to every species in the galaxy that one person can matter. One person can change everything. Thought about his students. He thought about Sophie, who drew pictures. He thought about who asked good questions. He thought about all the children he had ever taught and all the children that would live to protect because the evidence had reached the council. We should have done this faster, said. Yes, Carol agreed. But we did not. We did it now. And now perhaps it will stop. Held his daughter. Riley was crying, but they were not tears of fear. They were tears of relief. They walked together through the damaged station, where the stars shone bright beyond the walls, and everything was different now. 3 weeks had passed. Stood in his classroom at the education center, looking at his students. The room was the same as it had always been. The walls still had the same color. The tables and chairs were still in the same places. But everything was different now. Sophie was sitting in the front row, drawing pictures as always, was sitting next to her, his hand raised to ask a question. 20 other children sat at their desks, waiting for the lesson to start. But these children were different now too. They had seen what violence looked like. They had heard the alarms and the gunfire. They had been afraid. Yet they had come back to school. Started his lesson about planetary rotation and the seasons. The children listened. They asked questions. They took notes. They tried to be normal in a way that was both beautiful and heartbreaking. After the class ended, walked through the corridors of Earth Station. Things were being repaired. Workers were fixing the blast damage on the walls. The market was open again. Traders from different alien species were doing business, carefully, as if they expected the violence to return at any moment. But the violence had not returned. The Syndicate had pulled back across all 3 sectors. They were shutting down operations. Multiple worlds had found evidence of their crimes. Several species had formed a joint task force to investigate and prosecute. The Syndicate's leadership was either being arrested or fleeing to remote areas of space where no one would find them. In the Galactic Council chambers, on a station orbiting the home world of the species, was giving testimony. The alien captain told the council about the bioweapons. He described what he had seen on the 7 worlds. He described the suffering. And he described the human named Hayes, who had put his own life at risk to bring the evidence to safety. The story spread across the galaxy. Humans, who had been seen as primitive creatures without much value in galactic society, were suddenly being recognized as something different. The human who had hidden the captain. The human who had risked everything for justice. The human who understood that compassion was worth more than self-preservation. Other species began asking questions. What else had humans proven? What other qualities did the human species possess that galactic civilization had overlooked? In the Federation, philosophers began studying human morality. In the Ali Collective, scientists began researching human resilience and adaptation. Even the coldly logical species sent representatives to Earth Station to ask questions about how humans made moral decisions. Gave interviews. He appeared on communication networks that reached across the known galaxy. He told people about his daughter Riley, who had supported his decision. He told them about who risked his life to help. He told them about Carol, who had lost her daughter to the Syndicate's violence, and George, who used his knowledge of the station to keep them safe. He told them the truth, that he was not special, that any human would have done what he did, that he had been afraid every moment, that he had almost surrendered several times, that he had not been brave, he had only been human. Yet that was enough. Came to visit Earth Station 4 weeks after the Syndicate. The captain stood on the observation deck and looked out at the stars. His 6 arms were folded across his body in a way that showed peace and comfort. His wound had healed completely. Stood beside his old friend. The Council has passed new laws, said. Laws that make bioweapons illegal across all known space. Laws that make the Syndicate's actions crimes against all species. It will take time to enforce these laws, but they exist now, because of what you did. Because of what we all did, said. Yes, agreed, but you started it. You chose to help a stranger when you could have stayed quiet and stayed safe. Thought about that. He thought about the moment when the soldiers had knocked on his door. He thought about the fear. He thought about the choice he had made to lie to the Syndicate, to risk his daughter's safety, to put everything on the line for someone he did not know. Why do you think you made that choice? Asked. Considered the question for a long moment. Because someone was suffering, said finally, and I could help. In my species, that is enough reason to act. Turned to look at his friend with both of his forward-facing eyes. Your species is strange, but you are good people. Before left Earth Station, he offered a position. The Galactic Council wanted to create a new office of cultural liaison between humans and other species. They wanted to take a leading role in that office. The position would be prestigious and powerful. It would give influence across the entire galaxy. Said no. I want to teach, said. I want to be here with my daughter and my community. I want to teach children about what it means to choose what is right. Seemed disappointed but not surprised. I expected you to say that, the captain said. You are a human after all. Your priorities are not power or wealth. Your priorities are the people you love. 3 months passed. Earth Station returned to what it had been before the crash. The market operated normally. Traders came and went. Children attended school and played in the recreational areas. Workers repaired machines and maintained the station. But something had changed that could never be changed back. When merchants from other species looked at humans now, they saw something they had not seen before. They saw that humans had courage. They saw that humans had conscience. They saw that humans were willing to sacrifice everything for what they believed was right. Some merchants respected this. Some were afraid of it, but none of them underestimated humans anymore. Stood in his classroom one morning, preparing the day's lesson. Riley was helping him organize materials. She had decided to become a teacher as well, following her father's path. Do you ever regret what you did? Riley asked. Saving, I mean. Do you ever wish you had just let the soldiers search and not gotten involved? Thought about the question. No, he said. I do not regret it. I made the choice I could live with. That is all anyone can do. Even knowing how afraid you were, Riley asked. Especially knowing that, said. Fear is not the opposite of courage. Courage is doing what is right even when you are afraid. That is what I learned. That afternoon, taught a class of new students. Some of them had arrived on ships from distant colonies. Some had been born on space stations and had never seen a planet. Some were the children of merchants and explorers. Told them the story. He told them about the crash. He told them about the choice he had made that night, the night when soldiers came to his door, and he decided that protecting a stranger was worth any risk. He told them that this was what being human meant. One girl in the back of the class raised her hand. Did you know for certain that your plan would work? She asked. No, said. I did not know. I hoped, but I did not know. So you risked everything on hope? The girl asked. Yes, said. That is what humans do. We risk everything on hope. We believe that if we do what is right, something good might come of it. We might be wrong. We usually do not know the outcome until it is too late to turn back, but we choose to hope anyway. The girl sat back in her chair, thinking about this. Outside the classroom, beyond the walls of Earth Station, the galaxy continued its slow spin through the darkness. On 7 different worlds, the bioweapons had been removed. The survivors were healing. The grieving were remembering. And across all of known space, species that had never spoken to each other before were now having conversations about what it meant to be human. They were learning that humans were not primitive creatures who could be ignored or used for labor or enslaved by superior alien races. Humans were something different. Humans were people who would risk the lives of their own children to save a stranger. Humans were people who could stand against impossible odds and choose what was right. Humans were the kind of people who could change the galaxy, not through weapons or technology, but through conscience and compassion and the refusal to accept injustice. Stood at the window of his classroom and looked out at the stars. He thought about all the children in the galaxy who would grow up in a universe where bioweapons were illegal because one human teacher had made a choice. He thought about Sophie drawing pictures in the front row. He thought about asking good questions. He thought about Riley becoming a teacher like her father. He thought about who was probably in some distant corner of the galaxy, telling his own species the story of the human who had helped him. The story was true. It had really happened. But it had already become more than just what it had done. It had become something larger. It had become a story about what humanity was capable of. It had become a story about what happens when one person chooses to do what is right. And that story would echo across the stars for a very long time.